For years, innocent civilians have been paying the price of America's war on terror. This time, in Kabul, it is no different. Failures in US intel have led to the killing of an aid worker and members of his family, including children. WION was the first channel to tell you that these were not the ISIS Khorasan targets that America claimed they were. And now our correspondent Anas Malik returned to meet the family, whose calls for justice are ignored by both the US and the Taliban.
48 hours before the August 31st deadline, the US conducted a drone strike in Kabul's Khwaja Bugra area. It was in retaliation to the ISIS-K attack on the airport, with America claiming it had averted a terror threat. Visuals of the damaged vehicle were put out. The Pentagon claimed that they had hit an ISIS-K target. There were talks about preventing another attack, and that a second blast was indicative of the presence of explosives. WION's Anas Malik reached the drone strike site the next morning, 14 hours after the rockets struck the area. What he saw were harrowing visuals. The place still smelt as if something had just been melted.
I spoke to the brother of the person. The family says that they demand justice. They have outrightly denied any links with the IS, contrary to how it has been reported or claimed, and they say that these were innocent civilians. This is what the family has maintained. There were children among them, 10 civilian casualties, as what the locals have been telling us, and they've also maintained that there was no secondary explosion. There was only one explosion that took place because of the rocket that had hit the car.
We even spoke to Emal Ahmadi, the victim's brother. Emal had lost his own daughter in the strike and was grief-stricken by the entire incident. But even then, he told us that the strike was a wrong one, and that his brother, Zemarai, was a trained electrical engineer.
Yesterday, unfortunately, I lost my big brother and with three sons, and also I lost one of my small daughters, and one of my brothers lost her 3 children, and also I lost one of my nephew in here. Yeah.
Minutes later, a neighbor at the site told us the same thing. He said that the victim was an engineer and had nothing to do with any terror organizations.
This was my best friend's house. He was an engineer and had nothing to do with army or anything. He had nothing to do with Talibs or anyone else either. He was an engineer. 10 people have been killed, including 7 children. There is a lot of fear because of the strike. I came here after 5 minutes. People were lying in a terrible condition. I did my best to take them out.
We even took a look at the vehicle that was targeted in the strike. From human remains to parts of the vehicle, everything was still pretty clearly visible. The victim, Semaraya Ahmadi, was among 10 civilians, including children, whom the US killed that day through a Reaper drone strike in the middle of Kabul. One of those killed was from the Afghan army. Nazir Haidari had fought alongside the same US forces that targeted him, and he was waiting for his special immigrant visa. So, what exactly happened on that ill-fated day? As Semarai Ahmadi pulled into the driveway at around 4:30 p.m., his children swarmed around his Toyota Corolla. His 12-year-old son, Farzad, asked if he could park the car. Ahmadi obliged, making Farzad sit in the driver's seat and switching to the passenger side. This was moments before the drone struck the car. In an instant, 10 people were killed. Among those killed was a 25-year-old nephew who was about to be married, and 5 kids who were 5 years old or younger. In the driveway, what remains of the Corolla on Monday was blackened metal, melted plastic and scraps. Ahmadi's brother, Emal, has now left the house.
Outside the house, which was targeted by US drone on the...
We visited the house again to find the door locked. The neighbors there told us that the family had left. But the damaged vehicle still remains inside.
Since the airplane had targeted, the family has left. The house is not in a condition to be lived, and there is no such family left behind. It's been 2 weeks since they have left.
We later caught up with Emal. He now lives with his sister here in the capital. He even took us to the Kazaba graveyard, where all the victims of the strike are now buried. Emal is a regular visitor at the grave, waiting patiently for justice here. He says nobody has contacted him, neither the United States nor the Taliban. He says he has no idea about the investigation, and all he wants is justice.
Yesterday I heard that investigation is sure that we are an innocent person. Yeah, I heard for the New York Times.
But nobody from Taliban or US has said...
No one's come for investigation.
Right. Yeah. Did the Taliban speak to you over this, or did they come, or did they say anything?
Just only the first day that happening, the 3 Taliban come, just only say they hear you and go back.
They did not get in contact?
No, they are not contact, they are not investigate, they are not doing anything with us.
US President Joe Biden had promised to hunt terrorists down. He promised to make them pay. But it looks like with the failure of US intelligence, Afghans here are paying the price of Biden's promises.
This is the grave of Zamarai, who was an engineer working with an international firm. Zamarai was targeted by a US drone strike on the 29th of August. In Kabul's Kasaba graveyard, 9 more of his family members are buried alongside him. Those of his family members who are left demand justice from the United States. They also say that they have not heard both from the Taliban and from the United States on the matter of the probe and investigations of this wrongly done drone strike. Anas Malik in Kabul, Afghanistan, for WION World is One.
And joining us for the broadcast are our correspondents, Anas Malik in Kabul and Susan Tehrani in New York. Anas, coming to you first. You've been speaking to the family members. You were also present at the site of that drone strike just hours later. You have filed ground reports from that site itself. Serious question marks that have been raised over the manner in which this drone strike was carried out, over US intel as well. These family members have been talking to you, demanding justice. If you can elaborate for us what all they have shared with you.
Well, yes, this is a middle-class family, Molly. We've been reporting there since the day of the strike. I was there just hours later, and apparently it looks like that the US has indeed gotten the wrong man. He was an aid worker, Zamarai Ahmadi. He was an aid worker affiliated with a US-based organization. He was working as an engineer, and about 10 people were dead in this strike. Not just Zamarai Ahmadi, but that included 7 children, some as young as 2 years old. And overall, if I talk to you about, there is a sense of despondency which is basically reflecting in a country which is facing multiple crises at hand, be that be humanitarian crisis, be that be governance crisis, be that be a financial crisis. So the family is demanding that justice. They are hopeful. They would want to seek justice. They would go to all extents, whatever that's left in the family. But at this point of time, they are looking at different avenues, different options. I spoke to the family earlier today. Emal Ahmadi, the brother of the ill-fated driver, the ill-fated engineer who was in the car, who was an apparent target. And he said that he would be using all means on social media, because the United States currently does not have any presence in Afghanistan. So he would be going to social media, to digital media, to mainstream media as well, and seek justice for the loss of life of 10 of his family members. That includes his own daughter, 3 of his nephews, his own elder brother, and the family of his cousins as well. So he said that he's demanding justice. He wants answers to the questions that are currently unanswered, and he has strongly rebutted the allegations. And it looks like that whatever the family has been claiming, including the part that there was no secondary explosions, contrary to what the Pentagon has claimed, it might just well be true. Molly?
Right, let me take that to Susan Tehrani, who has been tracking all those developments in the United States. The stance taken by the American government, by the Pentagon, Susan, so far has been questioned time and again. Serious question marks have been raised over U.S. intel multiple times, be it this drone strike, be it its calculation regarding the Kabul takeover by the Taliban.
That's right. Regarding this specific drone strike, right now the U.S. military has insisted still that it's investigating the matter and has put the casualty number at 3. It has not confirmed or denied the 10 people killed, although we do have this compelling report coming out from initially WION, our own reporting, and also later on the New York Times and the Washington Post, the later news outlets. What's interesting to point to is that U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will be having a hearing at Capitol Hill, on Capitol Hill, a congressional hearing in about an hour and a half. We'll see whether or not he's pressed on this issue or not. But definitely, as you mentioned, from the botched execution of the evacuation to whether or not the Afghans coming into the United States, how they're going to be vetted, from ammunition and equipment being left in Afghanistan on the part of the U.S. military, to this so-called over-the-horizon surveillance and operation that the U.S. plans to conduct moving forward in Afghanistan, and whether or not it's going to be faulty, as we seems like seeing in this case. These are definitely going to be issues at hand with Antony Blinken and other U.S. officials, and it is an issue to take into consideration moving forward as well.
Indeed, and we will keep a very close eye on those developments. We're leaving it there for the moment, though. Thanks very much, Susan and Anas, for joining us with those inputs and details.